Welcome to O'Hara. It's time to explore the depths of your mind, your sanity, and your fear. I hope you're sitting comfortably. Enjoy. I returned to the house filled with rage and torment, now with the knowledge that I had in some way been responsible for the deaths of two innocent souls. My mind was filled with anger and self-loathing. I entered the drawing room. My father greeted me. He asked where I had been, as he was worried. I told him I was simply gone for a walk, and asked where Elizabeth was. She had fallen asleep, and he requested that I be here to comfort her when she awoke. I went to her side and watched over her as she slept. I begged her for forgiveness in my mind, not wanting to bring any further sadness. I vowed that once I'd finished the deal with the devil, that there would be no longer anyone to get in the way of our happiness. But if I was to begin the work, there would be a number of problems. First, I would need a laboratory. No matter how many rooms we may have had, it would have been impossible to move forward with the work without my family or servants noticing. The next issue would be gathering of materials. When I was in Germany, I was so burned with passion and ambition that I happily robbed the most dreadful of graves, but thinking about it now, I was mad. I'm frightened simply remembering it. To think that I must once again commit such a desecration. Before I could ponder any further, my father entered the room.
Victor, sorry to bother you. I know you're tired, but I have something to discuss with you. Would you come to my room? I'm not sure if now is the time for something like this, but with this string of misfortune, I wish to prevent any further calamity.
What is it, father?
It's actually something that's been on my mind for a while. After your mother passed, you set out for Germany to attend university. At first, you sent frequent letters, but then it wasn't long before you cut all communication with your family. In your last letter, you mentioned being passionately involved in some experiment. Victor, if you are hiding something from me, please be honest.
What are you saying I could possibly be hiding? There is nothing.
Well, I doubt you've forgotten, but when your mother was dying, she said she wished to see you and Elizabeth bound together. This is also my wish. I've looked forward to the day when it will happen, and Elizabeth wants this as well. What concerns me is your feelings. Be honest, Victor. You perhaps regard her as a sister, without any wish that she might become your wife. Nay, you may have met another whom you still love, and considering yourself as bound in honour to Elizabeth. This struggle may occasion the poignant misery which you appear to feel.
That's not the case at all. I've never met a woman the likes of Elizabeth. I love her even now, and I will forever.
Well, if you feel thusly, we shall assuredly be happy. I'm sure William and Justine in heaven also want this. How about it, Victor? Once your mourning ends, we could have a wedding for you and Elizabeth.
Father, I also wish to be wed with Elizabeth, but I have a boon to ask before that. There is something I wish to do at all costs before I marry. That is to bring my research to an end. Please give me permission to travel to England for that purpose.
Is that all? Well, I have no reason to be opposed. Go have your fill of study and travel. Elizabeth and I will wait eagerly for your return.
Marriage to Elizabeth. That was a wonderful thing. However, the fearsomeness of the task I must complete before that. Of course, going to England was an excuse. My intention was actually to find some out-of-the-way place to complete my work. The day of my departure was another sad one. Elizabeth begged me to stay longer, expressing her sadness that we were to be separated again. I told her I was sorry, but that I wouldn't be gone for long. I said farewell to father as well, but before I could leave, Henry met me at the door. "Henry, is that you? What are you doing here? I thought you were in Germany."
I hurried back at your father's request. He actually begged me to come. He told me that you might be somewhat uneasy about the trip alone, so he asked me to accompany you. But, Henry, you don't look too pleased at the idea. If it's university, no need to worry. I was actually wanting to take a little break.
I had no choice. We both departed in the same carriage. I needed to find a way to get away from him. He congratulated me on my intentions to marry Elizabeth, and I thanked him. Having Henry with me on the trip complicated things. We arrived at the hotel at night, and I still had not found an excuse or a reason why we had to be apart. Our place of stay was high above the city, overlooking the rooftops, spires, and churches and houses.
This is what it is to live. Now I enjoy existence. Perhaps life is for looking at sunsets. I've become a poet.
Indeed. Henry, when I'm with you, I feel quite cheered. But incidentally, I want to tell you something, so please don't take it the wrong way. After we spend this night in the hotel, I should like to go off on my own for a while.
Where are you planning to go?
I have no particular place in mind. I simply need some time alone to think. 1 month, perhaps, or it might end up being longer. So I want you to go down the Rhine and head to England before me. We'll meet again in London.
Well, when you put it like that, I suppose I don't have much choice. But come quickly as you can, please.
I will. And I'm truly sorry. The next day we said our goodbyes, and I went off alone into the countryside. I was looking for a building far away from people, where I could work, in a place with graves nearby and fresh corpses buried beneath them. I had to find such a place. I rode up hills, came across a decrepit house. It was run down, but structurally stable, and more importantly, did not appear to be inhabited. On the way there, I saw a graveyard, so I decided to inspect further. I walked through the cemetery, crosses and stones all around. But up ahead there was a large gathering of people, some sobbing, some holding their heads low. I joined the crowd and peered through to see an open grave of 4 caskets, fresh bodies. I asked one of the bystanders what had happened. He was most helpful in his reply. He said that the 4 had been caught in a landslide while working in a nearby vineyard, and most importantly, that they were all women. He went on about the cruelty of it all, but I had no time to consider sorrow. I was more focused on my work. I returned to the site of burial in the dead of night, no signs of anyone around. The graves had since been covered, but the soil was still loose enough to be moved with ease. I got to work shoveling the dirt aside, checking my surroundings every few moments, in case someone were to see. I finally struck wood, the recognizable sound of a hollow casket. I moved the last pieces of soil out of the hole, and prized open the first of the coffins. There lay the poor soul that had been consumed by the landslide. Her arms were crossed over her body, and she was wearing a dress, presumably the one she had died in. Her head was crushed from the neck up, a thin cloth wrapped around what remained. I reached down and tossed the corpse over my shoulder, once again asking for forgiveness for another sinless soul. The rest of the night was spent digging up the rest of the corpses and placing them carefully in the back of a wagon, then returning to the abandoned cabin I'd found. The problem was that all 4 of them had their faces crushed. Their bodies were severely injured as well. I salvaged the parts I could and started to at least create the torso. I worked relentlessly into the early hours, cutting, sawing, hacking at the limbs, all to appease the creature I had brought into this world. Forgive me, blameless woman. You are my sacrifice. Forgive me. I must fashion you into a partner for that monster. Forgive me. Forgive me. I'm exhausted. I suppose I should rest for a bit. Justine, forgive me. It was I who sent you to your death. It was the sin I created, Justine. It was the monster I created that killed William.
No, it's not your fault, Master Victor. I was tried in a court of law. What's more important is that you are happy with Miss Elizabeth.
Justine Moritz, it's time.
Well then, Master Victor, I must go. Goodbye.
Justine, no! Oh, what a terrible dream. I must hurry and finish this. Victor? Henry, what are you doing here? I'm sorry, I decided not to go to England, so I followed you. You seemed odd and I was worried. But I lost you along the way, so I've been searching for you. Victor, please, explain this to me. What on earth are you doing? Henry, I suppose I must now that it has come to this. I guess I have no choice but to tell you the truth. Listen to me. I'm making an artificial human, one deformed and twisted. I will confess everything to you. That in Germany during my studies, I discovered the secret of life. I created a beast so unholy that even God would turn a blind eye. But he escaped and has my life in a chokehold. He requested an equal, another creature, so that he will leave me and humanity alone. If I do not follow his wishes, he will cause even further torment upon me and my family. And that is why, you may or may not believe me, but it is the truth. Because of my foolish ambition, I have been driven into an irreparable situation. I'll admit, Victor, this sudden tale is hard to believe, but as far as I can tell from this situation, it's the truth, isn't it? Now that you've found out, I can't possibly continue any further with the work. The sin I've committed is a blasphemy against God. Please, just set me before the judge. Now just wait, Victor. You must consider this calmly. You know what that monster will do if you do not fulfill your promise, yes? As your friend, I can't exactly ignore that danger. I believe the only thing you can do now is finish this woman. What did you say, Henry? Listen, Victor, you have to complete it. I shall help so that you can finish it as soon as possible. Have you lost your mind, Henry? Do you understand what you're saying? I do. Now, think about what you must do. I pleaded with him, but it was no use. It was entirely unexpected, but Henry joined me in my repulsive work. We worked together for many days and nights, trading grave sites for suitable materials. Many were too old and decrepit, while others were solely skeletons. It proved rather difficult to find materials up to standard in this unknown land, so we decided to look in another cemetery. We needed a woman's fresh head, but no matter how much we searched, we could not obtain one. We sat side by side, staring at the incomplete corpse in front of us. If we did not find the head, the body would rot. But then, one night... What do you suppose that was, Victor? The horses are restless. Someone might have come. This is bad. I'll go take a look. I'll cover the body for now.
Victor?
What is it, Henry? He was there. My creation, standing at the door. He had the dock down to fit through the frame, and he stared at us through the opening.
What? Why are you here? I haven't completed the work yet. You seem to be having trouble gathering materials. I thought that might happen, so I took the liberty. I dug this up in a Swiss cemetery. I'll set it down here. Hurry and proceed with the work. I'm looking forward to the day you finish, my woman.
And then he left. Victor, that's him, isn't it? The artificial human you made. He's been watching over us from somewhere.
Be that as it may, we have all the materials now. Let's get to work.
Very well. I'll prepare the head.
Oh, no. What is it? What kind of... Henry, look. This is Justine's head. A head sliced clean by the guillotine. And he went and dug it up? Oh, dear Lord, forgive me.
Trembling with rage, I flew out of the shack, but the devil had already gone off somewhere, so I had to return to Henry.
He knew this was her head. There is no doubt he dug it up to torment me. Victor, I understand how you feel, but it might be that he didn't know. It's best to stay calm. Henry, you absolutely must not have sympathy for that monster. He is the devil himself. Okay, let's think. We have a body here, right now, that we can imbue with life. And Justine's head on the stand there. Isn't it fortuitous? Henry, what do you mean? Calm down and listen. Justine died due to a terrible misfortune, but you could restore her to life. Perhaps this might ease your suffering.
Henry, are you saying to connect her head to this body?
Don't be so foolish. Even supposing I did bring her back to life, she'd be doomed to wed that monster. Better for her to stay dead. I'm saying you could make another companion for him later. If you spoke to him, I'm sure he'd understand. More importantly, isn't it your duty to give Justine new life? But even if I were to use her head, I must still make the brain anew. In other words, the face is here, but we cannot tame her spirit. The composite form might also be a woman with the same violent nature as that monster.
We thought for a while. The cold, stony floor of the shack was strangely comforting, but after a long time of deliberating and thinking, I decided that we had nothing to lose. We endeavored to create a pure brain, and that with it we should raise her up and make her live as sweet and kind as Justine did. The decision was made. The brain began to take shape. It took far less time to craft this time, as I was already experienced in this horrific process. I fitted Justine's head to the corpse and lifted the dripping brain into the scalp. Then it is complete. Help me prepare the rejuvenation apparatus. Justine will finally come back to life. May the Lord in heaven watch over her.
Victor, I'm sorry for coming out with this now of all times, but what is it, Henry? I'm a little anxious is all. Will she be happy to be restored to life? What's the matter, Henry? Don't go doubting us now. I will definitely make her happy. Yes, right, of course.
I once again started the process, turning the electricity on, unscrewing the valves, watching as the abomination before me slowly came to life. Then it opened its eyes.
Justine, you are awake. Listen to me. Your name is Justine Moritz. You are Frankenstein's maid, no, family member. You are the kind and gentle Justine. Henry, pass me that mirror. See, take a look. This is your face. Now come, sit up. I'll remove the bandages for you.
He's here, Victor. The creature was indeed there, his glowing eyes peering inside, his teeth were exposed from his monstrous grin.
Come now, you can do it. Let's sit you upright. Good, that's it. Are you able to stay up like this? Can you stand yourself? Justine, I'm sure it was hard for you, but you've returned to life. Now, giving you life was my duty and my reward. This moment is the first step. Good. Now, let's get those bandages off. Justine, you're going to start a new life now. A kind, gentle life. The stitching is quite ugly right now, but at some point I intend to operate again so that it is less noticeable. Ah!
She picked up the scissors and stabbed me in the arm. Her expression was blank, no emotion whatsoever. The other creature just smiled. He even chuckled at this, pleased to have an equal. The wound was not deep, but blood quickly trickled from my arm onto the floor. Justine removed the bandages from her head and took her first breath, then let out an unholy scream. Henry and I fell backwards, and at first we thought that we were wrong, that we could not restore her humanity, but I did not want to give up hope.
Oh, my wife, it is my wedding night. We shall live together in harmony.
He approached her, smiling, and reached out his hand. Her eyes turned to meet his. She screamed again and moved backwards, trying to get away from him. She knelt down and grabbed the scissors once more and swung at him. The slash missed, but the damage was done. His grin turned to a frown, to anger, and without hesitation he rushed for her neck, his strong arms clamping down with great force until Justine's head tumbled to the floor.
Frankenstein, I told you to make a companion whom I could share joy. Is this what this is supposed to be? Did you think to create her to be my doom, perhaps? Did you intend, after my countless hardships, to murder me by her hand? I won't be done in so easily. Understand, Frankenstein, now it's my turn for revenge. Prepare yourself. You shall understand once everything is over. Once you've lost everything you love. I go to your homeland now. By the time you return, it will all be over. You shall regret this. Farewell, Creator.
What did he mean it will all be over? I think he intends to take the lives of Father and Elizabeth too.
Damn that demon, I shan't allow it. Victor, you can't. Not injured like this. I'll do something about the monster, don't fear. I have the fighting spirit of a knight of old. I'm taking your carriage, Victor. Henry, no.
That was my eternal parting from Henry. The next day, when I followed the carriage tracks, I found it at the side of the road, destroyed, the horses massacred, and Henry, the monster had killed him too. But I had no time to grieve for my friend. I begged for forgiveness for leaving him there, but I simply had to return home. I vowed to return to him once it was over. I rushed home as fast as I could. Elizabeth and Father were no longer safe, but I was always one step behind the creature. I arrived home and found their bodies. Father was in the study and Elizabeth was on her bed, clad in the bridal finery set aside for our wedding to come. I knelt over her, longing to see her body move or say something, but all I could hear was laughing, cackling from the window. I turned my head to meet him, smiling, that same unbearable smile. Then the chase began. It was the start of a long and difficult journey. That devil fled, all the while deliberately leaving signs that I could follow. I could almost hear him sneering at me.
The spirits of the dead hovered round and instigated me to toil and revenge. I prepared for my journey. I've endured the misery which nothing but the hunger of a just retribution could ever enable me to stand. The poor animals which led me with incredible strength took me to the summit of a sloping ice mountain, but soon after they began to perish, leaving me with just one. Then after that, I encountered your ship.
Mr. Frankenstein, you seem quite exhausted. Please, rest for now. He left Victor in the room and went up to the deck to speak with Bosun. It was quite a shocking tale. In terms of common sense, it's a hard one to believe, but we saw it ourselves, a giant on the ice. The ship once again became surrounded by ice. Walton insisted they continue north, but the crew became restless and expressed their disapproval and pleaded with him to turn the ship around. After consulting Bosun, it was decided. And so, Mr. Frankenstein, I have now been pressed with a choice. 2 of the crew have already died from exhaustion. We are forced to turn back, endeavouring on risks of mutiny. I see. Turning back is one way, but I must go forward. Here I have one request. Could you let me have a boat? I will go after him in that. You simply cannot. I understand how you feel, but please return with us. You must live a new life. It's hard to admit defeat, I know, but I must do the same. Shall we not move forward in life together as friends? All of my friends are dead. Their shadows whisper in my heart. The only path left for me is to destroy that demon. Those were his last words. He slowly drifted off into the eternal sleep of death, never finishing the task which he set out to complete. Walton left his quarters and spoke with the men aboard. He requested they turn the ship due south, and they began their course home. He believed he had made the right decision, as he chose the lives of his men over the success of his mission. He walked to the side of the ship, gazing out into the wasteland. He and Victor were drawn to this place for 2 differing intentions. Neither could see it through to the end, but only one would return alive. A distant cry could be heard. The men turned, looking around for the source. A polar bear, perhaps? Or simply the wind? But only Walton knew. He looked out onto the ice and saw him, standing in the distance. His body was decaying, pieces of flesh hanging from his arms and legs. He wailed with all his power, echoing into the distant plains.
My maker has died. I know it. I feel it. My maker has left me and died. Now there is no one. I am alone. But soon this suffering too shall end.
The monster's voice gradually faded until it could no longer be heard. In the increasingly fierce snowstorm, his figure too soon vanished.